One comment so far. Hello, Assad. Thanks, I'm doing okay. I hope you're doing well. I've been communicating with the Americans and prodding them into more honestly discussing Christian nationalism. I suppose I'm some kind of accelerationist because really, you know, when you suspect there's bad stuff happening, but you need to see it manifest itself, and maybe it's a bit at the moment, and you kind of want it to show its hand, and this is basically what I'm trying to do. So if you followed my last few streams and videos of other streams, you will notice that I have been bitterly complaining about all these young white American middle-class Christian men who speak to each other at great length but do not say anything. And I'm saying, it's okay, talk about your Christian nationalism, just, let it all hang out, because we are now being encouraged to discuss Christian nationalism. Christianity is being weaponized, and certain people are promoting it. Certain people who didn't used to promote it are promoting all sorts of things. So let's just deal with it. Some of you will know that I think Christian nationalism is really white nationalism, upgraded and prettily packaged to give white nationalists the dignity and protection that they feel they want against all those Jews, Muslims, and non-whites. So they have been smartening up, basically, and obviously there will be other Christians who don't agree with how their religion is going to be used. But how is this dispute going to be decided? We already know, or certainly my conversation with Chris Howard earlier has revealed that Christians really haven't got a leg to stand on about which Christianity is the one and only and the one to be respected, I suppose. Catholics will say that they are the original and the best, and Protestants will say, well, they're a more advanced model, and I think that's where it stands, unless you want to count the Mormons and the Unitarian Christians, who are in practice treated as heretics by the Trinitarian Christians. Why do the Trinitarian Christians get to call the shots? It's because they are the world's most powerful churches. The Catholic, Anglican, and Orthodox Church are considered to be the most powerful churches in the world. But I have been trying to point out that liberalism is an attempt by Europeans to free themselves from the totalitarianism of absolute monarchy. And this explains the English Revolution, or the English Civil War, if you prefer, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and the Russian Revolution. They were all attempts by Europeans to tell their king to go jump in the lake. So now we live in the era of representative democracy, and we are not happy with the results. And I think this is okay. We need to expel our waste material or it'll poison us. Yes? It's not a pleasant subject to discuss, the act of defecating and urinating and vomiting, and but we need to expel our waste material, and we also need to acknowledge what is or isn't waste material. But actually, delicious food becomes eventually waste material. However expensive and exotic and delicious, it all becomes waste material. And we need to know when it has become waste material. Because if we don't, we will be ingesting waste material as food if we get so confused that we don't know. Well, I know some people do eat crap. There's even a word for it called, coprophilia. And insults are sometimes to the effect of, eat shit. So ideas can be shit. Things can stop working. And if we reuse them, we could hurt ourselves, such as a torn parachute. So if you use a parachute, it works the first time, you try it the second time, the jumper dies. You're going to use it again without even repairing it. I mean, of course not. So what is it about people not using their powers of analysis to look at what the problem might be? So, okay, I am saying that Christianity is so kaput that its replacement of liberalism and nationalism and socialism are also kaput. So it's about 3 kaputs ago. It's like I'm telling you that your old car, your old banger that you sold a long time ago has been replaced by 3 more cars. And you're thinking, this old banger, my most recent one, the one I'm driving, is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's not going. That's all I'm saying. And if I'm wrong, just tell me. But nobody will engage. And even when I'm actually engaging with somebody, there are all these people who just try to interrupt because they can't bear to hear what I'm saying. And they ask some dumb question, and then they go on and on and on and go round all the houses in order to interrupt me and derail my conversation. I mean, I don't mind if I'm wrong and I'm interrupted to be corrected, if I get some, date of some historic battle wrong. I don't mind. But when people are doing it on purpose, and have, and when they have nothing useful to say, well, you might wonder at their motives. So obviously these people are not ones to have a theological discussion with, but who is? So I'm talking to Chris, and he's at least smart enough to know what I'm trying to say, even if he doesn't agree with it. It's fine. I don't expect people to agree with me, but to at least understand what I say. But my greatest difficulty is people who A, won't even engage because they don't trust themselves, or B, genuinely don't understand what I'm saying, or C, pretend not to understand what I'm saying. So what's wrong with them? They're stupid, dishonest, neurotic. I mean, they can always confer amongst themselves and say, is she telling us lies? Does she believe in nonsense? Is she, they can ask all sorts of obvious questions. They can ask me the question in person, like, what are you up to, Claire? What do you think you're doing? Whatever. I don't mind. But this policy of disengagement is, I suppose, evidence of their cowardice or fear. I just don't see why I'm so frightening. I answer questions. I try to answer questions. I don't think I'm some kind of compulsive liar. So as I was saying, we need to know the reality that we are faced with. So we can't be telling us lies. So the most interesting exchange I had with Chris earlier was that he didn't agree with me that liberalism was a reaction against the totalitarianism of absolute monarchy. I know this isn't what Tom Holland says. Tom Holland says liberalism was part and parcel of Christianity. And I know he is a court historian, he's a liberal historian, he is an Islamophobe, and for this reason, he is preferred by people who are hostile towards Islam. But he's telling them something that is obviously untrue. Now, for the English Revolution, the English Civil War, the Puritans who took over, Oliver Cromwell represented the Puritans who didn't agree with the Church of England because the Church of England supported the king. And that was what it was for. That was what it was created for. If you go back to the time of Constantine, why do you think Constantine decided to adopt Christianity? Because he already knew that no Roman in his time believed that anyone was going to be punished for their sins. And that was why Rome was always being embroiled in some civil war caused by some Roman general who wanted to be emperor of Rome. So Constantine thought, if they believed in something less violent, then they might, then the Roman Empire might enjoy a bit of peace, because all these wars are expensive and disruptive and impoverishing. I just don't see what is so controversial about it. I'm not having some, different hot take to ancient history. It's well known, isn't it, that Constantine converted Rome to Christianity? And it's well known that he fought a few wars against other Roman generals and he won. And I just don't see why it is even controversial that Christianity was adopted to protect absolute monarchy. But I notice with my exchanges with Natty, the Orthodox Christian woman, who initially agreed to be interviewed by me on Qurani Yule, and now she wants to be interviewed again, but I really can't be bothered with her because I know she's going to talk over me. I mean, she's going to give a lecture. And when I say, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? And she'll say, let me finish, let me finish. And then she'll speak all the way to the end. And nobody will remember what she said. And then she'll think, yeah, I won because Claire didn't interrupt me. But if I did interrupt her, she would say, let me finish, let me finish. So, and then she'll talk a lot of word salad. And that's why I don't really want her on my show. I mean, I did ask her 10 questions, and I'm sure she's not going to bother answering any of them. I did propose that she post her answers on Substack if she wants people to, understand her words properly. But I don't think she'll be doing that because what I think she will be doing is using words as an octopus uses ink. So either it is true that Christianity was adopted to support absolute monarchy, or it wasn't. But Constantine was an absolute monarch. Nobody is denying that, are they? And all the way down to 1918, when absolute monarchy was finally extinguished in Europe, Christianity was used to support absolute monarchy. But what about the Americans? I mean, why did the founding fathers separate the church from their state? Why? It's because they had to quarantine the church from their state, as well as stop these Christians who just arrived in America from fighting each other about, who was the best kind of Christian to be. And in the end, they still fought. The Americans fought a civil war with each other, and there was an American-Mexican war and an American, Spanish-American war. So they never stopped fighting. And then in Europe, there was World War I and World War II, and this was amongst Protestants of the same tribe, Anglo-Saxons in England and Saxons in Germany. They were originally Germanic tribes. So this would be the perfect opportunity to say, race cannot be your religion. If you want something to be your religion, you have to choose a proper one. And it can't be Christianity again because it has failed. And I'm sorry that nobody told you. So I'm telling you, and you can't bear to hear it. Because if it was working, you wouldn't have these problems, would you? Has Christianity protected Christian men from feminism? No, it hasn't. Has Christianity protected the Pope from the liberal order? No, it hasn't. The Pope submits to the liberal order, as does the Archbishop of Canterbury, as does King Charles. So what's the point then? If the problem is liberalism and feminism, you can't have more liberalism and feminism, can you? Well, it wouldn't make sense. So, with regard to the topic of this stream, philosophy is, in my view, the use of deductive reasoning to solve problems. Philosophy is also a way of defining and describing and ascertaining reality. So obviously, if you're proposing to do something because you believe such and such is the case, then your arguments must be sound. So if you believe it is safe to jump off a tall building, it could still be safe. I mean, there might be some sort of safety net or something, affixed to the the top of, the tall building, and if you jump off, you won't, hit the pavement with a splat. But you need to know if it's really safe to throw yourself off a tall building. Yes, that's how these things work. And so, as E. Michael Jones said, truth is the opinion of the powerful, which shouldn't be the case. Truth should just be accepted by all honest, reasonable, and moral people. But we already know that our ruling classes are not honest, not reasonable, and not moral. So what are we going to do about that? And I'm saying we need a proper moral system to ensure that our ruling classes are honest, reasonable, and moral. And then we have to discuss what morality is. And I'm saying if morality means anything, it must mean that we are not liars believing in nonsense. I don't think I'm a liar believing in nonsense. And maybe that's why these Christian young men refuse to talk to me, because they believe in lies and nonsense, and they don't want to admit that they have been believing in lies and nonsense. And they think by ganging up on me, by trying to interrupt me and derail the conversation, or just not engaging with me, they can make me go away, make the problem go away, and they will win. But I'm not to be easily put off. One of them has even said, I don't really care about Americans, I just want bad things for Americans. And I'm saying, no, I have an interest in America, because if America is this beacon of liberty, then all of us who value our liberty should be looking towards America as the gold standard of liberty, shouldn't we? Not that I'm saying that liberty is the be-all and end-all, because if you have too much liberty, you will find yourself suddenly back in the law, back obeying the law of the jungle, where the strong eats the weak. I don't think we want that. We want a fair society where our lives are reasonably safe, and our property too, and perhaps ourselves and our children safe from rapists and sex offenders. I think that's what we want, isn't it? I'm just trying to make these points, and there are all these men pretending not to understand me. And I'm just wondering what to do about it. So I should, before I start reading the comments, talk about the Whig interpretation of history. Because I haven't checked. I suppose I should have checked before I started the stream. But the Whig interpretation of history is basically the idea that liberalism is an end in itself. It has made everyone happier over time since the end of Christendom. Let me Google it, and then I promise you I will go to the comments. Sorry, I don't want to be distracted. Whig interpretation of history. There was a book. There is still a book. Oh, you can get it on. You can get it on PDF. So it's a free book. It's a book by H.M. Butterfield. It's also called Whig History. Whig history or Whig historiography is an approach to historiography that presents history as a journey from an oppressive and benighted past to a glorious present. The present, described as generally one with modern forms of liberal democracy and constitutional monarchy. It was originally a term of meta-narratives praising Britain's adoption of constitutional monarchy and the historical development of the Westminster system. The term has also been applied widely in historical disciplines outside of British history and the history of science to describe any subjection of history to what is essentially a teleological view of the historical process. It's a bit complicated, isn't it? But anyway, I should mention that the Whig interpretation of history is saying, ain't liberalism wonderful? Weren't liberals right? And hooray! And let's have more liberties. And they started to have more and more liberties, and then of course eventually it will be liberation from the rules of marriage and good parenting, and this is what we have, where everybody is free to have sex with whoever and identify as whatever, and think it's okay to teach children in primary school to think it's okay to make a lifestyle choice of pretending to be a member of the opposite sex. That's what Whig history has led us to. So obviously they thought the Protestant Reformation is part of Whig history because these Protestant kings were rebelling against the oppression of a Catholic Pope, right? And then eventually the subjects of the Protestant kings rebelled against their Protestant kings and became republics, like America. And now they're not happy. They're still not happy. So I know there are people who would just rather not discuss, I know these Americans, we don't really want to talk about eyes. What good does it do us? And, people will just get angry with us, whichever side we come on. And I'm saying, no, you can't actually play both sides. So on the one hand, you can say, it was a terrible thing that happened, that these two demonstrators were apparently executed in broad daylight. But then there was an element of contributory negligence in their actions in disobeying the lawful orders of an enforcement officer. In the case of the first killing, so she shouldn't have been obstructing the highway. She should have got out of the car when she was told to get out of the car. She shouldn't have continued to. She should have driven or appeared to have driven at the police or at the ICE officer, and shouldn't have driven away from the police officer, the ICE officer, in order to avoid arrest. So anyway. Of course, nobody deserves to be shot 3 times in the head for doing that. But that was what happened, and but then either you don't think illegal immigrants, should ever be expelled, or what's your position? You can't say. It wouldn't make sense for you to say that there should be no consequences if you are an illegal immigrant. Because if you say that, then I guess you're just encouraging more illegal immigrants to come to your country and think nothing will happen to me if I am an illegal immigrant. And obviously a lot of Americans are concerned about illegal immigrants. So you could actually say, on the one hand, no demonstrators should be, killed for demonstrating. But there were elements of contributory negligence in the in both killings. And of course, I should be allowed to go about their business lawfully if that's what they were told to do. They could say that, but they don't, and they don't even want to touch it with a barge pole. I understand, because then people will accuse them of all kinds of things, and I just don't think it's a big deal. Because, well, I mean, it's par for the course. Eventually, somebody's going to accuse you of something if you're going to be making arguments for this or that. They will question your motives, they will question the premise that you rely on, they will question the soundness of your argument. So unless you're, emotionally and intellectually equipped for this, yes, I understand you would rather not talk about these things. Fine. So don't talk about them. But there will be people who want to talk about them, and I think you should allow them the space to come to a reasonable conclusion about what should be done, instead of not allowing them to discuss it, or accusing them of all kinds of crap just because you don't like the sound of what you're hearing. Oh, Rich Tempest, I'm so glad you're here. Assad, I did hear about is it a movie about a man who got married to a piano? Or was it a novel? I don't know. Yes, Rich Tempest, I've already heard the Christian Nationalism stream of PVK. And, okay, I actually don't really know about that. I mean, okay, I don't think it's an important point. From what I can remember of that stream, PVK was saying Jimmy Carter actually took his Christianity seriously, and then, but Ronald Reagan didn't. And Reagan was more popular than Carter. But, well, Carter had a difficult time, didn't he? I mean, there was inflation and the problem with the Iranians. Yes, so difficult times, and I guess Carter looked kind of beleaguered and not terribly competent. I will read your remarks. I might even read them out here. So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is I'm spoiling the fun of the people in the TLC who don't want to talk politics. It's like, okay, I can talk philosophy too, but fundamentally, even philosophers get into trouble, don't they? Socrates got into trouble, didn't he? There's no escape, people. There is no escape. You might think there might, the places you go to that used to be politics free might be, but that's what people want to talk about, and you have to kind of let them, right? Because in the end, it would help if it would help the mental health of people who have mental health issues to let them talk their problems through instead of shushing them and calling them names. All right, I'm scrolling down now. I did post a few comments. They seem to have been deleted. Oh no, still there. Rich Temper says, okay, I should post the link to PVK's channel. I am still posting, obviously using a different account. Okay, once I posted it, for the benefit of others who might be interested, I will read your comment, Rich Tempers. And you say, okay, just for context, I suppose I'll have to read it all. So Mark Parker says, you can't blame the 55-mile-per-hour speed limit on Carter. That was imposed on us by Richard Nixon in 1974. Remember the first Arab oil embargo? I'm afraid I'm a bit vague about these things, if I remember them at all. And PVK says, you're right, I stand corrected. Repealed by Bill Clinton. I should have done my homework. And Rich Temper says, I guess PVK and the Get Along Rando gang need to take the Sweet Pickle bus to summer school since they've consistently skipped doing their homework assignments on the subjects they flagrantly espouse. Maybe if they actually read the Baal cycle myth, they would understand the origins of the Afro-Asiatic Canaanite deity pantheon of El they supposedly worship. I also find it ironic that he played a video discussing Persian Zoroastrian cosmology being the origin of Western dualistic concepts of good versus evil, which 14th century BCE West's adopted on Elephantine Island before the Maccabean revolts, yet didn't actually touch upon it himself, considering how many times TLC has ignored or outright denied this fact when it had been brought to their attention. SMH. You can't make this stuff up. The blatant incoherence is glaring to those who've actually done our homework. Okay, I'm sorry, Rich Tempers. I really don't know what you're on about. It's all these references are too obscure for me. But I will say before I go, I mean, is anybody going to argue with me about this, about why religion, politics, and philosophy are inextricably linked? I thought, as I was speaking earlier, that I should have mentioned history. History, religion, politics, and philosophy are inextricably linked. So we know that some historical narratives are controversial or even heretical. I mean, after all, you could get into a lot of trouble if you said Jesus wasn't God and asked, well, if he really is God, when did it happen and how did it happen? And then you might find yourself burnt at the stake. But obviously religion is about sacred beliefs. Now, the weak interpretation of history is a narrative that is sacred to liberals. We have to understand all these narratives and their sanctity to their adherents. So with Marxism, the idea, the narrative that eventually we will get to a workers' paradise is sacred to Marxists, right? We just have to understand what it is these beliefs are and who holds them, and then it'll become clear. It will become clear who you're talking to, even if they don't quite know themselves, why they're doing certain things or believe in certain things. And, a lot of people just, they take the whole package. If I want that to reach a workers' paradise, then I have to accept the entire package of Marxism, don't I? If I really, 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 really believe. What are you saying, Assad? If everything doesn't work out, start a dramatized audiobook channel. I promise you get lots of subs and views. You can be very humorous and funny when you want to be. I'll tell you what my current modus operandi is going to be. I'm just going to gate crash the TLC. I'm going to gate crash well, I have done. And that's what they're complaining about. People like Chad and Olsen, they and Neil and the others. But some of them are taking an intelligent interest and actually have appeared on this channel, and we've had a perfectly nice discussion. But obviously, if they hate me, they're going to say, you're not even American, and you hate America, and you want Americans to, America to crash and burn. And it's like, no, I would like America to carry on, but for Americans to repent of their idolatry by adopting Sharia. That's what I hope for. You may think I'm crazy, you may think it'll never happen, but that's what I hope for, and that is what I am trying to nudge everyone towards. And I know they all start screaming and yelling and how dare I, and I think, well, the founding fathers are proto-Muslim, weren't they? They were proto-Muslim, the founding fathers. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. So, as far as we know, the founding fathers, they were Masons, by the way, and Masons were, well, it's very important that they're Masons because it meant that they could agree to put their differences aside. We know that the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church tells Catholics and Orthodox Christians that they must, on no account, become a Mason. And if it was ever discovered that they were Masons, they would be excommunicated. Why do you think that is? We know from the American Revolution that this was precisely what these absolute monarchs were in fear of. If all these Christians started, being friends with each other and saying, oh, who cares about the Trinity as long as we believe in God, then monarchies would fall. I also happen to know that some Muslim governments get very nervous about Muslims becoming Masons. And the reason is clear. So I think on the whole, I do encourage people to maybe drop in on their Masonic lodge and make inquiries about, what can be done. But I know the government is cracking down on this and, wanting Masons, the Masonic lodges to reveal their um, their membership list. That shows how nervous they are. But yeah, that would be a safe space to have these discussions. If you don't want to be seen to be doing it on YouTube, this is what I encourage. I knew a few Masons, quite nice people, as far as I could tell. But the last time I spoke to one, they were complaining about falling membership. But I guess, men need a safe space. Yeah, something weird has happened to Masons. I think they're obliged to accept transgender women, but not transgender men. Something like that. You have to look it up, but they've also been trying to undermine the adherence, the solidarity of Masonry. So I think the Americans owe their republic to Masonry, because if the founding fathers just went to their local spoons, to discuss revolution, I guess they'd soon be found out, or one of them would get drunk and insult the other, and whatever. So you need protocols of proper behavior to discuss important things like revolution, and not be mocking each other for your religious beliefs. Masonry came from Islam. I heard that it came from the Middle Ages. Okay, that's not quite okay. Masonry origins. Oh yeah, but this is something I wanted to just complain about with these Muslims. So I'm subscribed to this Substack, and some of you may know that Daniel Hakikatu is got into a fight with the Wahhabis about sacrificing for Allah, and it just makes them sound so retarded. Like, why are you arguing? Having 7-hour streams about this stupid subject? But they do, and that's why they're hopelessly divided too. Okay, let me see what Wikipedia says. Well, nobody really knows. I suppose it's more likely to be Jewish than Christian, and Christians are meant to be the subject to be worked on by the other two Unitarian religions, who were obviously nervous of being denounced by Christians who could be so unpleasant and so violent to non-Christians as well as to each other. Okay, so we don't know. I mean, I suppose it's quite likely the Muslims would have a purpose in starting it. But my theory about Masonry is that it was intended to unite all the Abrahamic religions one day, and make Christians not be mean to Jews and Muslims who are their brothers in Masonry. But I don't pretend to be an expert on that. So Yes, I did watch Eyes Wide Shut. I just have no particular memory of it. Yes, I had heard of that. That Muslims built the first European medieval cathedrals, blah blah, and started the first universities. Yeah, talking about Islamic architecture, St. Basil's in Moscow are kind of Muslim-y, right? It's got this sort of the usual, um, the round thing, the dome-like thing that Muslims have on their mosques. And this, I guess it's an Orthodox Christian architectural feature. Well, that's very interesting, rich tempers. Look, the point is that there is only one God, right? I don't think Jews, Christians, and Muslims are going to disagree with each other about there being only one God. So, um, once you get this agreement, all kinds of other agreements would surely follow. But I think a lot of people just fear to engage on the subject because they think it's a can of worms that will lead to them giving up Christianity. Fortunately, I'm, on the one hand, I can see that, it's not a good idea to reject the religion of mum and dad if you want to be on good terms with mum and dad, and particularly if mum and dad take their religion seriously. But there are higher authorities than mum and dad, right? And you knew that since you went to school, that there is a higher authority than mum and dad. And I mean, the whole point is, deciding who is really the highest authority and who is really the highest operating authority that you have access to. And if that is not enough, how to reach higher authority in order to get things done. And we do want to get things done, don't we? We want good government. We want the laws to be fair enough. We want to feel that our government is not evil, stupid, or mad. And I think these are reasonable aspirations, don't you? But unfortunately, these Christians who are neurotic and psychotic, and I mean, why do they talk at such inordinate length and still make no sense? Why? It's because it's just because all they're doing is vying for attention. All they're saying is, no, 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 me first, because my pain is greater, my need is greater than yours. It's not like they're saying anything important or constructive. You know, I want to say what I want to say because, and I know I've said it already, but I want to say it again because it hurts so much, and you all have to listen to me. It's it's infantile mewling. It's not grown men trying to work out their problems. It's just saying, oh, stop the world. I want to get off. Too many things are happening. I need time to process them. That's what they're saying. Well, you can help the analysis of the situation by letting the people who think they have something to say, who have an opinion on it, to speak. So why shut them up, even if you don't like what they say? Because, the moment you say something, somebody's going to pop up and disagree with you. So, well, let it take place. Sit back and bring popcorn. Yeah, I see an inflection point coming up. Obviously, the evil people, they'll be wanting to control the interpretation of the Quran. And I guess the good people will have to say, no way, we're not going to let you control the interpretation of the Quran. We're not going to let you redact it. We're not going to let you mess around with it. And we know that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And we won't forget. Ever again. Okay, nearly an hour. Thank you all for listening to me. I hope I made some sense.